Take a quick gander over these, see which ones stick out to you. We want to hold them all very close to us today as we are working within a topic that some of us are maybe a little bit nervous about or some are maybe uncomfortable with, but we're so happy you're here. So check them out. Take a screenshot if you like, and we're going to move forward.
In terms of our expectations for the day, our expectations are really that we are all growing, and that includes Veronica and I. So you can think of it as we're all these little saplings, and the things that help us grow are these things that are in the raindrops. So feeling challenged, feeling some resistance to maybe ideas that we've held for a long time, feeling uncomfortable, making mistakes, learning and listening. And through this process, we grow into big, beautiful, very conscious plants. And just to emphasize, we are all learning together. That includes Veronica and I, the different things that we're going to learn about today that kind of express adultism. There are things Veronica and I have done before, and there are things that we still do and are actively learning to stop doing. And that's because we live in an adultist society, and so it's really ingrained into us. So we just wanted to kind of set that out there, that we are all learning together and we are by no means perfect.
Absolutely. Thank you. So what is adultism? You all are here. We have 72 people thus far on this fabulous workshop webinar. Can Veronica talk today? Webinar workshop. When you heard this word, had you heard it before? What comes up when you hear it? What do you think adultism is? We're going to take a quick second for you all to annotate if you'd like, but you are welcome to also put in the chat or unmute yourselves as this is a workshop, so we can dialogue together. What is adultism to you?
So I'll jump in if that's all right.
Yeah.
I'd heard it before, but from my understanding, it's basically seeing the world around you from an adult's perspective, not putting yourself in another perspective in a compassionate, empathetic manner, whether it be younger or I'm not sure what exactly adultism entails, but that's how I see it.
Fabulous. Very much in the arena. Yes. Any other additions? I don't see any annotations. Can you all annotate? Did I say the wrong thing? Am I talking my neck?
In the chat box, we have, I think, underestimating someone / youth, assuming being an adult is superior in some way, adult focused, adult centric thinking, someone can't or shouldn't do something if they're not yet an adult. Adultism to me is knocking something someone says because they're on a different learning level than you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I see someone annotated, thank you. Valuing adult thoughts and decisions over youth voice. Don't laugh at me, Nicole. That's absolutely, this is it. So we're going to define it in a couple of different ways. So here, this is the very basic level. Prejudice or discrimination against young people as a group. That's the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition, right? So like many other isms, yes, that says it, but does it really define it? Here's what it is to us.
So on a deeper level, we have adultism is behaviors and attitudes based on the assumption that adults are better than young people and are entitled to act upon young people without their agreement. This mistreatment is reinforced by social institutions, laws, customs, and attitudes.
Okay, so let's annotate or chime in or use the chat box. How does adultism function within these structures we have listed? And are there other structures that you can think of that adultism is fully functioning? So we have schools, government, families, and other. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see we have restated the definition in smaller font. So sorry if it's a little too small, but we wanted to make sure you had it just in case you needed reference to it. I see some annotations coming through now. Fabulous. And feel free, just like Freddie did, You can unmute and share. Because I said so. Powerful statement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Opinions may not matter as much. Teachers not listening. Teachers are always right, but while the students are actually the customers. Interesting how that works. The teacher is right. I'm guessing students are not. Not having the ability to vote. Powerful mention, thank you. Not educated enough. Pardon. When we use youth to get what we want, I'm filling in some blanks. Decision makers believing that youth are too young to know about policies. Absolutely. Absolutely. They get it. They live in it. Meeting times that young people can't attend equals limitation for involvement. Oh, yes. Right? You know, you have school at 1 and meetings at 1. That doesn't work. Respect for elders and families. And what that looks like, right? Respect is something that is always mutual, but what does it look like when you say you have to respect this person, but they can talk to you any old kind of way?
There's a really good one in the chat box for under others. Amber says, in the medical field, minors cannot give consent. Their parents must consent to medical procedures for them. A lack of autonomy, they have simply because they are minors. I think that's a really good point.
Thank you. Has Amber said that?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Amber. Absolutely. It wasn't until recently that, you know, young people could opt in for their own mental health, like therapy sessions by 13, I believe. That was recent. And then laws around contraception and yes, assuming youth gender. And that they may not understand their own. This is, let me get this. I need to save this. Hold on. That's not what I wanted to do.
Another one in the chat box, youth being cited by school resource officers, but not having the ability to have legal representation in schools. That's huge.
That is so huge. That's why we have this webinar. You all are fabulous.
Oh, gosh, I know. I feel like we have to move on, but all these things that people are saying are amazing. We also have, in families, adults expect children to apologize for their mistakes, but adults don't apologize to their children when they make a mistake.
Go there. Go there. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Pause in the audience.
Yes. Yes. Now we do have 90 minutes and Nicole and I have rehearsed diligently around this. So I am going to take a screenshot of this. And I want to thank you all for sharing because we came here to learn together. Because I know I'm learning something. Okay, I'm gonna have to clear it. This hurts a little bit, but I'm gonna have to clear it. Okay. Now let's think about this. This is how adultism functions within these structures. And here comes that little part where those raindrops come in. How does adultism function within our structure? What are the practices that we may have in our agencies, in our youth coalitions, where we're saying, okay, we have to modify this a bit. Who put that? Adults are hired and paid staff.
I need to get my round of applause.
Yes.
Out for that one too.
Yes. What else? Program activities are outlined and defined with scopes of work and adults, not with youth or youth leadership. Look at this, look at this, look at this. Telling youth what policy issues they will work on. Paid staff set the agenda. Yes, the stars, if that's the kudos. Adults run the show and are in charge.
Mhm.
Oh, look at that. That's one I haven't heard. Adult splaining policies.
In the chat, we also had adult splaining. We also have not understanding children's needs during pandemic, but expecting the same outcomes. Youth don't have input on agendas. Editing youth voice in the media. Adults determine the direction of programming. And specific work time and school time limits people. Ooh, not enough support financially or with paid internships. That is huge because a lot of times if young people have jobs too, aside from the fact that they should be paid for doing work for programming, they're taking off time from jobs that they may have to help support their families to come to our meetings.
Yes. When programs tell youth what they need to do for them, not trying to figure out where their buy-in is or where their personal interests are, just, we got to get this butts hunt completed. We really want you all to do Kick Butts Day or Taking Down Tobacco Day for us, with us. But they don't even really know what it is until you explain it. And didn't really care about it. Lack of transportation, meetings scheduled during school time, job requirements often eliminate youth from even applying. Job requirements often eliminate youth from even applying. Okay. Not going to youth. Oh wait, they're overlapping. Shoot, sorry. Not going to youth, expecting them to come to us. When including youth, it's got to be from 9 to 5. Somebody, Bethologis. Thank you, Beth. She's quoted herself. This is it. This is exactly what it is. We are having youth work with us, and we know that it's a long time until we can get some change in certain places, but it is more important it is just as important, let me say, to recognize what functions and what isms we're working within. Because if we choose not to, then no change happens. But if we have the awareness to say, we're asking you to do a lot of the work that we are doing and being paid well to do. So this is beautiful. Thank you for going there. I didn't know how this slide was going to really come out, to be very honest with you, but I really do thank you for being honest and vulnerable and teaching me about some of these new terms out here. So I am going to, I'm going to save this one last time, and then I'm going to clear it. Forward. Let me close out. And we're going to move forward.
These are some quotes that Veronica and I have heard over the course of our careers that may indicate that there is adultism at play. So in the chat box, if you want to note to us which one sticks out to you and maybe why or what's problematic about it. Number 1 says, all you have to do is give them pizza. Number 2 says, young people are so creative. Number 3, there's a city council meeting tonight. Can your youth speak? Number 4, all of our members are in AP classes. They're really good kids. Okay, in the chat, Joelle says number 3, tonight, with lots of exclamation points.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I see a lot of stars around number 3. Lots of arrows around number 3. Number 4. Honey, who is this? It says, oftentimes youth of color are excluded from AP / I'm guessing honors classes.
Mm-hmm. In the chat, number 1 implies youth don't care about the content being provided, only incentives. Mm-hmm. Number 1 also preys on low income / food insecure folks. Number 4, what about other students? Let's be inclusive. Twyla says, number 3, can you bring us youth of color tonight?
Woo!
Oh, ouch.
Yeah. My ancestors just were like, no, just now. That's wow.
Yeah, so these are all really great answers. I mean, you all are hitting it on the mark. So on the next slide,
I'm going to save it really quickly. You know, I'm
yes.
trying to save every slide when they start writing on it. I'm going to clear it off now. Generalizations. I see that.
So on the next slide, we have some ways that Veronica and I have kind of workshopped these quotes. So number 1, we need to provide food at our meetings. What else can we provide coalition members with? So we need to remember that pizza is not payment, and maybe someone will come peek their head in because they see pizza at a table and you're welcoming everyone, but that is not going to retain youth coalition members just for pizza throughout the course of your coalition or a campaign. And also, young people want opportunities to make a difference in their community. So we need to make sure that we are offering them those opportunities as well.
Yes. And people are creative, and a lot of times they are born that way. So when you see a young person creative, they oftentimes will turn out to be an adult who is creative. So we want to see creativity as an asset to any team and not praise them for just the gift they're given and say, oh yeah, we want young people because they're so creative. I've met a lot of young people who are not creative at all. They have other gifts, but creativity is not one of them. And so why do you really want to include young people? And thinking about why do you define your inclusion of them with certain characteristics?
Number 3, there's a city council meeting next month. So you can see in this quote, the timing has already changed from something happening tonight, we need youth tonight, to next month. We are providing training so coalition members can share their stories. It's really important that we give young people scaffolding when they're doing something new. And so if they're going to be speaking at a city council meeting, we need to maybe go to a city council meeting beforehand so they can see what they're like, or help them create talking points.
Mm-hmm. And I think to speak very specifically to Ms. Twyla's comment about asking youth of color to specifically join, that is about a built relationship. And when you come into a community of color and communities that have been very vulnerable historically and even now, and you say, can we have them literally because they are Black or because they are Indigenous or because they are Latinx or Latino, that you're functioning within a couple of isms at that point. You didn't build the relationship. You don't know these young people. They may not even care about your issue. And it's offensive and insulting. I could imagine, I'm not trying to speak for Ms. Twyla, but I could imagine to come in on the last minute with no idea of what their origins are and ask them to speak because of the color of their skin. Now for number 4, when we say good kids, it's like, okay, so why do we define young people as good? I don't really do polarizations. So we want to think if we're all public health professionals and we understand health disparities and how hands dealt can determine trajectory, we need to think about defining young people for their strengths, and there's no good or bad. And then to say we've recruited youth from a variety of schools and classes with a variety of experiences based on their interest in wanting to be here in the Youth Coalition. So here are the 7 Adultism practices we're going to present to you. These practices result in missed opportunities for learning and skill development, and they disrupt trust. And these 7 practices were observed and coined by Dr. Heather Kennedy during her doctoral practice, and we'll show you the handout we're going to give you too for that. Just know when we are going into this, that not everyone does everything, but everyone does something. We are in a conscious crew right here. This is a conscious space. People know what time it is on this webinar workshop. That does not mean that we haven't made a mistake. That does not mean that we're not going to make another mistake. It's promised as long as we're here. So look very critically at what we're saying and what is listed, and just kind of do that internal assessment and pat yourself on the back when you're like, I never do that. And then also think, oh, sometimes I do that. How can I interrupt that behavior? And we're going to get into some not role play, but some examples of that. Here's the handout that Dr. Kennedy created, and it's also going to be in the link. The link will be in the chat. So check it out.
So before we go into the 7 practices, we wanted to provide you with this tool called the mirror test. And the mirror test is a way that in the moment, you can kind of identify adultism within yourself by asking, is this the way I would treat an adult? And now we're getting right into those practices. So the first one is policing. And policing can look like stopping youth from having certain conversations, maybe conversations that make you uncomfortable, like conversations about race, conversations about sex, maybe stop them from having social justice conversations or things that you may feel would be controversial within the group. And it's not only restricting what they're allowed to talk about, it's also restricting how they move within the physical space. Are they allowed to stand up? Are they allowed to use the restroom when they would like? And policing really just sends the message that we don't trust young people.
And there's lecturing. So it sounds like just what it says. Are you standing at the front of the group, particularly for a group of young people that you're seeing right after school, and just telling them what's about to happen? Is there no engagement? So it's a good question to think, well, how long have I been standing? How long have they been sitting? And when have we done both together? And so if there's none of that, then oftentimes it's a lecture, sit and get kind of a layout for the group, and that can affect retention.
There's also disengaging. As we start to form relationships with young people within our youth coalition, we also become a trusted adult for them. And that means that they might share difficult things that are going on in their lives with us. And so if and when that happens, it's really important that we follow up with them. And it's not a matter of needing to know exactly what to say in that moment or having the perfect thing prepared. It's really just a matter of making sure that they know you care and saying, hey, I heard what you said today during group, and I want you to know that I'm here for you if you need me.
Beautiful. Then the next 3, very simply put and understood, negative comments. Now we understand that there's 2 ways this can go. There are those outright obvious negative comments that you always want to avoid, reframe, maybe you just don't need to say anything at all. Then there are those times where you can be really sarcastic and you can be a very playful adult coordinator. And if you have been working with a lot of young people for a period of time, you've established a certain type of rapport and relationship to be able to joke with people in a certain way. So just know that there may be some newer youth that you're working with, and hopefully that's a sign of awesome recruitment. And you want to just be mindful of the relationship you have before you joke and use sarcasm, for example, like I do. Then with excluding youth, this is done in 2 major ways. Are there young people that show up late? And is that one of your pet peeves? And if someone shows up late, you're often less inclusive of them, really, quite frankly. And you do not ask for their input. You may favor the people who showed up early or on time or just more helpful. And you don't want to do that, because if a person showed up, that means they wanted to be there. So especially if this is an extracurricular activity, you want to say, okay, maybe you are 10 or 15 minutes late. And maybe that's a conversation you can have later if it's a chronic behavior. But if a person showed up late, it is your job to open the door. Now, also when it comes to extroverts and introverts, there are a lot of times people will favor those young people who are always ready to say yes, raise their hand. I want to be in front of the camera. I want to be in front of the crowd. And those young people seem more eager to be involved. Well, there are young people who may not show the same expression and eagerness, but they know differently to be in front of the crowd and give the press conference speech or speak to the media. So you want to reach out and say, is this something you're interested in? Because they just may not want to be as vivacious about their involvement as their counterparts. Then obvious separation of youth and adults. This comes with when you have a break. Now it's a little different, I think, on Zoom, because usually when we break. And that means the camera's off and I'm going to do other things real quick. But if you're in a room when that day comes again, are you breaking and you're just chit-chatting with adults only? Or are you breaking and you make yourself available? Maybe don't go up to you and say, hey, how's your summer been? What's going on? Not that kind of stuff, but just making yourself available. And when there is an activity going on, if you're learning how to do media advocacy, or if you're learning how to do a PSA of any kind, are you involved in the process just as much as them? Or are you kind of just sitting back and letting them guide everything? And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So you want to see how much involvement do you have? Don't take over. Don't do that. But you can be at the table and you can make yourself available. And that is the way you show support.
Finally, we have incomplete instruction. That can look like adults not describing an activity very well. And as a result, youth are confused. And that's why the scaffolding that we were talking about earlier is really important. Really guiding people through things that they've never done before. We don't want to say, well, you all decided that you wanted to do a survey, so write the survey and then conduct the survey. It can also look like content not being comprehensive, so not making links between what they're learning or what they're doing meeting to meeting. And it can also look like adults assuming that youth know why they're doing an activity. And I think a way that this really presents in the work that we do is not explaining to youth how the activities that they're working on tie into the grander campaign scheme that you may be working on with lots of different community partners.
Yes. Here's a recap. So I love this slide. If you like to take a screenshot, be my guest. And just policing, lecturing, disengaging, negative comments, excluding youth, obvious separation between adults and youth, and incomplete instruction. These are the 7 adultist practices. So how does adultism function when there are no young people around? This is critical because it's a lot of times we think on an interactive level, but if there's no young person in the room, how does adultism function? You can write it in the chat, you can unmute, and feel free to annotate. Talking about youth, talking about youth as if they have no agency or comprehension of the issues. Absolutely. Falling into the habit of talking down about the work young people are doing. Nicole, what were you gonna?
In the chat box, we have making plans for youth without their input. We make assumptions. This is what young people would like, what they would think, or what they would want. That's huge. Expecting them to do what you sign them up for rather than asking how they'd like to help. Yes. Not considering youth perspective.
Assign them work. Oh, we're going to put the young people to do this.
Yes, Nancy. Getting a token youth member without planning for full inclusion. Okay, so we need somebody from the BIPOC community. So you find one so they can be standing next to you. You don't know who they are, their name. They may not know why they're there. It's just like, oh, I thought this was for public health. They don't realize the tokenism. Forgetting to invite them to the table. Seeking opportunities to connect with them beyond the introduction. Making negative comments about youth instead of addressing youth. Some of these are coming and chopped on my end, so I want to make sure I'm saying them. Complete thought. This would be easier if we did it without the youth Who has heard that where it's like, oh, we got to change the meeting time. We got to work on Saturday. Do we have the budget for a pizza? They may need rides. We don't have that transportation. What is it? Legal form. It's been such a long time because we're different, but all that. Yes. But you want them to show up though. You sure enough want them to be at your city council meeting. But you don't want to get peace in a ride. Okay. Thank you. Yes. This is how it functions when they're not around. You see that's what? Comments, assumptions, good thinking. I'm going to save this real quick. Any more, Nicole, in the chat?
When you ask the youth for a perspective, show them how you will put action to their ideas.
Yes. Yeah.
Assuming to know what the youth want. Oh, and Tracy says, I have not heard these kind of comments from anyone in my team. That's great.
That's awesome. All right, Tracy. Pat it on the back now. We're going to do a quick little game of name that tune. All right. So who knows this tune?
Jaws. People are saying Jaws in the chat.
First beat. Absolutely. That is a theme song to Jaws. And we use that theme song because there is such a thing called shark music. When it's happening, it's very real. This is a principle of circle of security parenting. Once upon a time in my life, I was a parent educator. And this is a principle that we use. And it's just so applicable to difficult situations, but particularly for adult child or adult youth situations. So when negative past experiences happen for you, they can guide the practice you have in dealing with other negative experiences that are bound to happen. And often what it is that you were expressing an emotion as a young person, as a child, and the way that core people in your life responded to that emotion is often the way that we are instinctively going to respond to that emotion. And sometimes we're trying to unlearn those behaviors. So for example, if I was crying when I was a little child and my parents like, stop crying. Tears are silly. We strengthen up around here. We don't cry around here. Farwells don't cry. Literally, I heard that one time. Farwells don't cry. And I checked them. And I love my Nana, but I had to check her. And so Farwells don't cry will tell me, oh, well, that means I have to do something else with these emotions. So when I see a little Farwell in front of me crying now and I'm an adult, my first instinct may to be, if I didn't unlearn that behavior, is to say, hey, Farwells don't cry. We don't do that because I'm just repeating the cycle, right? Now, sometimes we know how to undo it, but other times it's so quick and instinctive that we don't even realize like where that message even come from. And so that is what we call that shark music. That child starts crying around me and I just hear doo-doo, doo-doo, and it's all coming up. So we have a scenario that we're going to work through with dealing with this music and some other tools and realities. There we go. So here we have a mid-October Youth Coalition meeting, Act 1, Scene 1. You're at a youth coalition meeting on Zoom, and one of your new members has arrived late for the 4th time this semester. They are posting links to articles for a school research assignment in the group chat, and they have interrupted your slides to talk about it numerous times since they joined late. Now here the shark music is, that internal soundtrack. What values may come up to cue that shark music in this scenario? What are they doing? How? Respecting time and space. Boom. So they're late to your meeting. They're not respecting the space to hold and stick to this conversation about what your coalition is working on. Is this about me or we? What you mean? And it might be, And I think it's a me thing, because when you're leading and someone's interrupting you, you start to feel that disrespect come up. And then you feel a little bit ignored because they keep posting stuff in the chat. So you know they're not paying attention to you. And that's all a part of people's value system. And that doo-doo, doo-doo, that shark music may start to play. Okay. So this is mid-October. We haven't had the adultism webinar yet. So you hear the shark music and you don't mute it. You just say, oh, this young person that keeps showing up late, they're interrupting me. This is getting frustrating. And it keeps on keeping on. So I'm going to clear this board real quick. 1 second. Thank you for annotating. I love the annotations.
So what could have been a wide open road that we're traveling down has now turned into the rumble strips. And just to be very clear, you have to give people credit. I learned about rumble strips from Christopher Williams with the Sac County Office of Education. So the rumble strips are, now you're starting to veer, right? And so in our scenario, Act 1, Scene 2, we are now on the rumble strips. As the meeting goes on, the young person continues to interrupt their peers and ask questions about assignments due at school the next day. You are beginning to get extremely frustrated and can feel yourself on the verge of snapping at them. So, how do we get back onto smooth terrain at this point? How could we?
This is a question for the group, huh?
I was going to say you can put in the chat, annotation, any of those. Okay, Tracy in the chat. The lateness could be due to family matters that the youth is facing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. We never know what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma-informed approach. Okay.
I hear my people.
Maybe reaching out to that student who's making the comments and saying, hey, maybe I can allow you some time at the end, or some time for you to connect if that's what you need.
Look at Lourdes. Yes.
Yes, and in the chat box we have ask if we should designate time for us to check in with one another in the future. That's great. Veronica and I are a big fan of one-on-ones with our youth board. Send a message to all about staying on task and resume. Give time to address the youth's concerns. Ask if the rest of the group is feeling the same way. Yeah, I completely agree. It sounds like they have a lot going on at school right now. Like maybe there's a big project coming up or just a lot of assignments at one.
Yes, because remember, this is a mid-October meeting. And right now, well, what happened mid-October for a lot of young people? What happens? Midterms, college applications. Mid-October is some thick time for high school students. So as an adult coordinator, to prevent these sorts of moments, you say, you know what? In October, we're going to have 5-minute check-ins. In October, we'll do a survey. I'll send you something from SurveyMonkey. I'm not going to have a meeting with you. Just kind of being aware of what's going on. We require less for our youth board, less of them in June, especially if they're seniors. They don't know us, from a can of paint at that point. And so you really want to just know what's going on. You be as in tune to the school as you want them to be in tune to the coalition.
100%.
Yes, and I see, take a deep breath. That's it. That's one of the biggest ones.
I think that's our cue.
Yes, it is. It really is. Let me get out of this.
So it's really important that as you feel yourself veering on those rumble strips, that you take some time to recenter yourself, to be the youth coordinator that you really want to be and know you can be, and veer back away from those things that maybe adultism is telling us we should react in a certain way. So you can do that by taking just take 5 minutes, call for a quick break. And during that time, do some deep breathing, as someone else suggested. Turn away from the computer, drink some water, and you can even say an affirmation. So if you're looking for an affirmation, you can try this one. Emotions are expressions of needs. What does this person need?
Yes. So let's say it didn't happen and you popped off at that student. You didn't take that deep breath. You didn't take a 5, none of that. So in Act 1, Scene 3, they have had their last interruption from you and you say, hey, you need to pay attention. We only have 30 minutes left of this meeting and we need to get through the content. You are acting like a little kid. Contaminated space. Not just for the youth that you were yelling at, but every single person who saw you act up, like I told you all earlier, you have set the precedent for yourself. But what next? So now we're going to do another breakout. What lasting effects does this interaction leave on the Youth Coalition? How do you work to recover group dynamics? And what are some ways you like to interrupt that shark music? Go all the way back to the radio playing doo-doo, doo-doo, your internal radio, and think, how would you have stopped it? We gave you some examples. What else? So this will be a quick breakout. All righty, welcome back. So from what you discussed in your breakouts, let's have a moment to talk about recovery. What would you do? You heard the shark music, you didn't mute it. You were on the rumble strips, you didn't veer back on the road. And then you just had a moment. How do you recover? What did you all talk about?
You apologize.
Mhm.
Okay. Yes.
We have in all caps, own your behavior in the chat and open it up for discussion so they can have an opportunity to speak about it.
Apologize, label your emotion, make a promise for what will be better or different next time. Absolutely. Any more details on that apology?
We have be humble and apologize.
Right, let humility accompany you.
Be transparent and willing to dialogue.
Talked a little bit about showing vulnerability and how that it opens the door to building a better relationship with your youth coalition or with you.
Yes, yes.
We have apologize in front of the group, not just to the person.
Who said, thank you. Thank you. We don't even have to go over the next slide like that. This is a big one. I tell people, if you're going to embarrass me in a stadium, don't apologize to me in the living room. Go back to the stadium and apologize there. Let that magnitude of your mistake match your apology. That's how I think about it. You say, oh, I yelled at them at the Youth Coalition. Well, you know what you're going to do? At the next Youth Coalition, apologize. Is it good to have that conversation as immediately as possible? Of course it is. Because you don't want that young person walking away with all that hurt and pain. Because they probably not coming to the next Youth Coalition meeting. But even though you apologize personally, you do so publicly.
And we have Alyssa says, do some self-work to address your historic traumas that caused you to react this way.
Okay, Alyssa.
You owe an apology to the whole group because you likely lost trust with every youth, not just the youth you were addressing.
Right.
You have 2 apologies to the person and the group, both publicly. Oh, Freddie says, thank you for that, Veronica. I needed to hear that.
You're welcome, Freddie.
No excuses and offer an explanation, but not excuses.
Yes, yes. Community agreements.
Mm.
Go back to the core, the foundation of behaviors. We made them as a state team. I hope everybody makes them as a youth coalition. Absolutely. Any more before we move on? It's going to be a quick move on because we pretty much addressed it. You all already know what time it is and how to apologize and how it should look.
Remind yourself and bring it up to the group that the coalition is ultimately about them.
Mm. Yes. Yes.
Showing accountability will show the youth that let me start that over. Showing accountability will show the youth the appropriate responses to mistakes. Yeah, I think that's huge too.
Yes. Yes. Because you're an adult in their life and they're learning. They have role models all over, not just their, immediate family. So when you do something, they're like, oh, okay, I didn't know that could happen. I've never had an adult apologize to me like that. I've never had an adult say that to me before. I mean, I feel very young and I do feel like I am so much closer to their age, but I'm still an adult. And they're like, no, this is model behavior I'm getting every time. So do that. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to clear this board. Already saved. Oh. This is just what we talked about. Vulnerability, apologizing, all of that. You got it. You've got it. Now, before we move into the end of the webinar, we want to remind you all to please take the evaluation survey. The link is in the chat. It's very quick. It's not going to take a long time, of course, unless you have so many good things to say. It will take a long time, but other than that, it'll be fine. And then we want to end here. There has been a lot said, some really heavy stuff said too by all of you. This is something we started with the Youth Advocacy Conference in July, and we really like the activity, so we want to keep it going when we have these sorts of moments. A heart is something that's heavy on your heart. What is something you are walking away with and you're trying to figure it out now? Trying to project, how can we change this? How can I do better? How can we do better as an agency? And then a hope is, what is something you're motivated to do, right? So on this slide, in the chat box, you can say it just the same way we've been sharing for an hour and 15 minutes now. Let us know where your heart is and let us know where your hope is. I see it. Be patient with everyone. And you know what that means? Yourself too. Anything in the chat?
Gracie says homelessness of people/animals, kids in ice cages with sad face.
Right. The serious destruction of what this world looks like. Absolutely.
We have heart. I'm really reflecting on the good kids idea and how systems have been built that leave out youth of color. Heart is present, and hope is in improving my work and relationships to young people.
Awesome.
Heart, using the mirror concept, hope to build real connections with some youth next year. Heart, steps for recentering. Hope, motivated to label my adultist ways and allow youth to call me out using these labels with kindness as well.
Oh, look at that. That's the work. That's the work. Respecting their time, be kind to youth, be the best coordinator and provide a safe space for my youth coalition. Yes, and understanding the depths of safety. Hope, excited to see trauma-informed approaches because it will help get at a root concerns around behavior. Get at root concerns around behavior. Yes. Think about the roots. Without them, we cannot impact change for them. Absolutely. Great reminder what we need to do to keep the relationship with our youth coalition, I think is what. Practice double conscious. Look at this. Okay, come on out. Come on out. Thank you. Thank you. Any more in the chat?
Hope, share with my team. Heart, reflecting on everything that has been said and trying to stop the shark music. Recognize that shark music and doing our deep breathing, going in a little deeper.
Yeah. Hope.
The way I currently engage with my nieces and nephews and how I need to improve myself for their generation as well as my own.
Take it home. Take it home.
Hope.
Teamwork makes the dream work. I see it. I see hope.
Hope, providing a safe and empowering coalition. And also, I hope that we can build trust between our youth and offering them a choice.
We will get there. We will get there.
Heart, being a mentor and a friend by filling in those gaps you know that you needed as a youth.
Ooh. Circle back. Pay it forward. Beautiful. I just love, love, love hearing. Being vulnerable is okay. And it is a straight up gift. And from what I've experienced in doing so, young people accept it as just that. When you are a vulnerable adult and you say, I made a mistake today, I'm not feeling very well, and I need you to know that I'm coming to you just as whole as I can possibly be, but I'm present. Young people are patient and understanding. And I say young people intentionally because, you know, adults. So.
Another one in the chat. Heart, I have a preteen daughter, and the hard work that is put into helping her realize she is a person and that her opinions and ideas are valued, as is her time, knowledge, and talents. Helping her realize that she is seen has built an incredible work ethic, therefore lifting her confidence in the ability to speak when she's hurt and articulate her feelings.
Wow. Wow. Powerful preteen. Powerful preteen. Okay. I have truly enjoyed, this time flies. It just flies. But I love seeing your faces and your names and hearing your voices. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We, if you would like to get in contact with us, and most of you do have our information. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask them now. We have about 10 minutes to go into it. Let me release this. Hold on. I really like the heart and hope, so I need to just save the screen real quick because I was trying not to delete it. I ain't gonna lie. But I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna clear the drawings.
We have a request for a part 2 in the chat box, Veronica.
Do we?
We do.
Oh, don't say that because you don't even know. Okay. So thank you for that request. If you have any other questions or comments, leave them in the chat box. Stay with us. We are now done with the webinar, but we always like for people to stay and ask questions. We're here for you. If you have questions that are totally unrelated to what's been said, but you want to just ask us really quickly, we can do that too at 2:30 though, just to give people the space for the webinar questions. I'm going to go to our information for those who need it. These are our emails here. So please do not hesitate to reach out.